Okay, so just for an example of what we're going to do today, this is the completed project. We have a first page, we have these inside spreads, and then we have the final page. You can see there's some color differences here, and we'll go through all that. So go ahead and launch up InDesign, click on New File, and there's some presets here. We're going to go to Print. Units, we can switch on over to inches just to make it easier. And we're going to keep this orientation, and then we're going to keep facing pages. Facing pages will allow us to have spreads, which is what we want. Okay, there's options here for bleed. We'll go into bleed later. I don't want to overwhelm you. This is an intro workshop, so we'll just leave it like that. The last thing we'll change is the number of pages. Let's start with 4 pages. Okay. If you're doing something that's heavy with text and you like to have text starting out with, kind of like in Microsoft Word, you can turn on primary text frame, and that'll just give you a big text box in your document. But we're not doing that today. So that's it. Let's click on Create, and here we go. I'm going to give myself some room here so you can see we have pages, and you can see we had 4 pages. This is the front page. If you double click, you can visit the other pages. Okay, this is a spread, and then we have our final page. So you can zoom. The best way to zoom in and out in all the Adobe programs is by holding Alt and just using the scroll wheel. Okay, and then another way to move around is by kind of dragging your hand, walking around with your hand. So you don't have to switch to the hand tool. You just hit spacebar, and this will give you the hand tool, and you can use that to kind of move around, which is nice. Okay, I'm going to head on over to the first page, so I'll just double click it and zoom in a bit, and this is where we're going to start out. Okay, if you have a colleague or someone in your group has used InDesign before and things are not where they should be, for example, if things are just ripped out and you want to set everything back to normal, you can go up here. We're going to be in Essentials, by the way, so make sure you're in Essentials. And then to reset everything, you can click Reset Essentials, and everything will pop back into place. Okay, next thing I'll say is this is Properties. This is contextual. So depending on what you have selected or don't have selected, this will change and update. So just wanted to let you know that. Okay, our first page has a black background. So we're going to just start with that. If you notice over here, we have a rectangle tool, which will make a shape that's actually rendered and printed. And then we have the rectangle frame tool. Later we'll get into the frame tool. It's basically just for having things as a placeholder, which is what you'll do often in InDesign. And then when you get the graphics or photos from your designer or your photographer, you'll pop those into the frames. But now we would just want to make a black square that it's actually going to get rendered and printed. So go ahead and click right here. All right. And we want it to be black. So if you look over here, this is no fill and then black stroke. I actually want a black fill. So I'm going to use this little button to make sure I have a black fill. And I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to click and drag a black box. Okay. You'll notice I got it perfectly in there. Transform is going to be from the top left. So this is relative to the top left of the page. So it's going to start at 0, 0, which is right here, and then 8.5 by 11. So for example, if you didn't quite get it perfect, maybe you overshot it or something, you can come in here and actually change it after the fact. So just good to know. And there we are. I don't want to accidentally draw a bunch of boxes, so I'm going to go back to the selection tool right here. And then with this guy selected, I'm going to lock it in place so I don't accidentally draw a bunch of boxes. All right. To lock it into place, go up here to the top, click on Object and Lock. Shortcuts Command L or Control L on Windows. It'll give you a little lockbox here letting you know that I can't select it, and we're good to move on. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to go over is placing images. And let's go over that now. Go to the top here, click on File and Place. Okay. And then I'm actually going to show you guys with a Photoshop file. So you can use other Adobe formats, and I'll show you why this is nice. It's a nice little feature. Okay, so I'm going to click on that one, and you'll notice it's going to load it up into my little thumbnail here. If I click and let go, it'll come in at full size. Okay, but I want to show you that you can define the size right off the bat here. So if I click and hold down the mouse and drag, I can define the size right off the bat. I'm going to go to 30%, and there we go. There is our image. One thing to note is this is not just an image, this is an image within a frame. So to move this guy around, I can grab one of, just not the center, okay, don't click the center, grab on the peripheral, and you can move it around. Okay, I'm actually moving the image and the frame together. All right, when you're first starting InDesign, the first thing you'll try to do is resize this, and you'll notice when you do that, you're actually just resizing the frame. You're not resizing the image. Okay, so I'm going to do Command Z or Control Z to undo that, and let me show you what I mean. Okay, first I'll show you how to resize the image and the frame both at the same time, and you'll need to add another keystroke. Okay, so if I hold down Command, okay, I believe it's Control on Windows, this is actually going to resize the image and the frame. Okay, you'll notice it will become distorted, so I'll need to add one more keystroke. So I'm going to hold down Command and Shift. On Windows, it should be Control and Shift. And when you do that, you'll see it resizes proportionally both the image and the frame. All right, moving on. What if I want to actually move around the image within the frame? So let me zoom in here a little bit, show you what I mean. Up until this point, we've been grabbing the outside to move both the image and the frame. But if I want to move just the image, there's a couple ways of doing that. I'm going to show you just this one way. You can select the very center, okay, and it's hard to see, but you're actually now moving just the image within the frame. You can see the orange outline, all right, and this is really handy because if you need to just change the framing or change the image without changing the boundaries here, this is really helpful. This is what InDesign's made for, okay, so I'm moving the image around. If you really screw things up and it looks all weird, don't worry, you can always get back to square one. Let me show you how to do that. I'm going to select my frame and image here, and then over here in frame fitting, there's this first option, which is fill frame proportionally. I'm going to click on that, and it will do exactly what it says. It'll fill this frame with the image, and it'll do so proportionally. All right, so that's it for now with this image. And let's go ahead and kind of put it into place, and we'll make some duplicates. Okay, go ahead and just drag it over here. You can align it with the margin there, and let's make some duplicates. All right, the easiest and fastest way to make duplicates in all the Adobe programs is by holding Alt, clicking and dragging, and on a Mac that's Option. Option and Alt are kind of like the same button, the same keyboard button. So I'm on a Mac, so I'm hitting Option, okay? On Windows, it's Alt. Hold that down, okay? And then you'll see your cursor will actually change. Click and hold down Alt, click and drag, and there we go. So I'm holding Alt, clicking and dragging. You can also hold down Shift if you don't want to move it horizontally when you're moving. There we go. We've duplicated it 2 other times. And now I actually want to change the visibility of the layers. This is actually a Photoshop file. I'm not going to open it now. You can just trust me. And there's 3 separate layers that are available. So on this second one, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go here to Object Layer Options. And this is nice. It also works on multi-layered PDFs, if I remember correctly. And here are all the Photoshop layers, and I can turn them off and on. If I click preview, I can actually see it update here. So I'm going to turn off the eyeball here. And now I'm just seeing the Illustrator layer. Okay. Let's do the same with the bottom. I can right click, object layer options, and I'm just going to show the Photoshop one. All right, there we go. And in this part of the workshop, I'll give you some time to try to make it look like the finished product here with zoomed into the various parts of these images. So I'm going to do that now. Remember, if you need to select the image, you can click here, click the center. It's now selected, and you can move around the image within the frame. Okay, I'm going to hold Shift and just make it larger and try to get this zoomed in here. All right, do the same. I'm going to zoom into this knot, the NOT. Okay, and if you don't like doing this and clicking in the center, there's also the direct select tool. I don't want to show that now because it involves an extra step. You know, if you want to select the image that way, and when you're done, you always have to go back to the selection tool. But I'm just going to show you in my opinion, the easier way by clicking the center here. All right. Okay, so there we go. And we're done with this part. The next thing I want to go into is the visibility of the actual pixels here. So if I go to the top and I go to View and Display Performance, this is actually on high quality display. I think someone must have changed it. But you generally want to stay in typical display. And depending on your computer, I think the default is going to be typical display. And you can see with typical display, it does not show the true pixels. It saves memory, okay? And then I would definitely keep everything globally in this typical display. And if you need to take a closer look at a particular graphic, you can right-click, go to Display Performance, and then switch over to High Quality Display. And then I can see, okay, this graphic looks fine, and then I can switch it back over to typical display. So when you right-click, you're doing a per object change. Okay, it doesn't affect all the other ones. If you want to do a global change, you'll go up here. So you go to View, Display Performance, and if I want to change everything globally, you know, I can go Fast Display, for example, or Typical or High Quality. And you'll notice right now the center image is not changing. That's because I did an object level change. So you'll see here Display Performance, and you can tick this on or off. If I go here to Clear Object Level Display Settings, I'll do that now. And now we're back at square one, and everything should follow the global setting, as you can see. So I'm going to go to typical display, and we'll leave it there. All right, this is going to save you lots of memory. Make sure you're on typical display if you're using lots of high quality images, so InDesign doesn't crash on you. All right, next thing I want to go over is links. So it's best to do that now. It's an important part of InDesign, so I'll show you. And let me open up. I'll go to here. I'll click on Window, and then Links. And you can see there's our Photoshop file. If I hit the disclosure arrow, it'll show you each time this Photoshop file is reused and which page it's being used on. So I have it used 3 times on page 1. All right, and by default, InDesign does not copy information. It tries to stay as lightweight as possible, and these are exactly what they're called, links. So it's pointing to this place on your hard drive. If I save this InDesign file and I give it to a buddy and they open it up, they're not going to get any of these files. All right, we'll go over that at the end whenever I export this. I just need you to be aware of that early on, okay? So there we go. And next thing we'll go over is our first spread. So I'm going to click on Pages, and I can double click here to go to my first spread. Let me minimize this. I'll hold down spacebar to kind of get my bearings here. And I'm going to start out with a black rectangle here and then a frame just as a placeholder. So once again, I'm going to go to my rectangle tool. And I'm going to make this half a page. So 4.5. Actually, let's do 4.25, which is half by 11. Okay. And as I mentioned, if you don't quite get it right, if this number is not right, it's going to be different. So you can make sure that we're starting at 0, 0, and the size here is 4.25 by 11, and that'll be precise. There is snapping, but it's always nice to kind of type things in. All right, there's our black box. I'm going to go ahead and lock this guy in place. Object, lock, just like we did earlier. And now I'm going to have a frame. So instead of using the rectangle tool, I'm going to go here to the rectangle frame tool, right? And then I'm going to come and make a big frame, the size of my page, of the remainder of the page. Okay, that looks good. And we'll get back to that later. So this is good for just blocking things out. If you don't have all the final artwork, it's good just to kind of occupy that space. All right. Next thing I'm going to go over is the paragraph styles, and I'm going to define those before I even make this text here. It's going to save time, and it's also an important feature of InDesign. So I'm going to go here to Window, and then I'll go to Styles and Paragraph Styles. You can see there's lots of different styles, and you're probably wondering why I'm not doing character styles. So paragraph styles are more general, and then if you need to make more specific changes, you'll move on to character styles. Okay, but we're going to start with the broad, less specific paragraph styles as a starting point. Okay, so click on paragraph styles, and here we are. So I'm actually going to hit the new style button right here, and there's my new style. You can double click in the text area. I'm going to call this one title. Okay. And then to make further changes, you can click here and click edit if you want, but I like to just double click the gray area. So don't click the text, click the gray area. So just double click and we can make changes. This is title, and we're going to make a few changes here. So basic character format, I'm going to change this to Myriad. Let's do Myriad Pro. Actually, sorry, let's do Myriad Variable Concept. And this is a title. I'm going to make it bold. Okay. Size is going to be large. Let's go all the way up to maybe 30 points. Okay. And then if you hover over these, they should tell you what they are. Tracking is the space between each character. And I want to squeeze it in. So I'm going to go in the negative direction, maybe negative 25, just to have that really dramatic squeezed in text. And it's bold. It'll look nice. I'll make a couple more changes. Okay. I'm going to go to hyphenation, and I'm going to turn off hyphenation. Hyphenation is an eyesore. We don't like it, so I'm going to turn it off. And then lastly, I'm going to go to character color. This is going to be white text on a black background, so I'm going to do this now and make sure this is paper color, which is white. Okay, there we go. There's our first style. I'm going to click OK to finish. And I'm actually going to keep it selected here because when I hit the new style button, it's going to inherit the values from title. So click the new style button, and there we go. Here's the new one. I'm just going to double click the gray area, and we'll call this one subtitle. You'll notice here it says based on title, which is good. it does all the work for us. We don't have to go in and define all those things. It's just going to grab them from title. All right. All right. So basic character format. This is a subtitle, so I want it to be, let's do semi-bold as an example. Let's try to find semi-bold. Here we go. Size is going to be smaller. Let's go down to maybe 24. And the tracking, well, we'll just go back to the original 0. And there we go. You'll notice everything else should be just like we had with title, because it took those values. So -8's off, and character color is paper. So everything else is good. We don't have to do all that work again. I'll click OK, and let's make one final one. So I'm going to hit the plus sign, double click here. We'll call this one body. And you'll notice it says based on subtitle, which is good. All right, basic character format. This is body, so it's just going to be regular. Okay, and then this is size. We're going to go down to, let's just do 12. This is the body text. And that's it. Okay, you'll notice, I'll just show you once again, it's taken all those values just like we have with title, which is good. So click OK. And there we go. Those are our paragraph styles. I would recommend using them as much as possible to be organized and to save yourself trouble. All right, let's go ahead and go in here. I have body highlighted. We'll start out with body. That's fine. Okay, so just keep that active. It does matter which one's active here. And I'll go to my type tool. So I'll click on my type tool, and I'm going to make a text box. Oops. Let me do that one more time. I'll try to snap it in here. And I'm going to make it about this size. Right? Doesn't need to be perfect. And I'm actually just going to fill this in with some placeholder text. Okay. This is important for design because you need to have visual representation of how much type is used and what it looks like. So I'm going to go here to type and go to fill with placeholder text. And there we go. It's going to fill it in with Latin. All right, let me zoom in here so I can get a closer look. And let me show you how paragraph styles work. So let me turn on some visibility so I can actually see everything going on here. So I'm going to go to type and then show hidden characters. You'll see all these little blue dots. These are telling me there's a space between each of these words. And then this is the paragraph symbol, which is very important for paragraph styles. All right, this is showing me this is a separate paragraph from this one. Right, so this is a paragraph, and this is a paragraph. All right, so for my title, I want to have just a few words. Titles tend to be a little shorter than subtitles, for example. So I'm going to go to these first few words, and yours is going to be different from mine because it changes every time you do fill with placeholder text. Get my cursor right in here, and I'm going to do a hard return by just hitting enter. So if I hit enter, there we go. You'll see what happened, and it added this little paragraph symbol. So this is going to be my title, and then I'm going to choose another slightly longer line here to be the subtitle. So I'll go right about there. I'll hit enter, and that is another line. Let me get rid of these extra spaces. Sorry. Okay. Now, to apply the paragraph styles, so far it's all using the body style. I can go in here. I can click anywhere. It doesn't matter, as long as it's within this first paragraph. This is where it's active. I can go in here to title, and it's going to apply that. I don't need to highlight all the text. This is all done at the paragraph level. All right, so let's go to the next one. Doesn't matter where you put the cursor as long as it's within this second paragraph. And I'm going to go to subtitle. And there we go. Okay. Let me go to my selection tool so I don't do a bunch of further edits, and let's zoom out to see what we're working with. Okay? Just be aware, if you have something selected and you go in here and you click, it's going to make changes. So be very careful whenever you're making selections in paragraph styles, because whatever you have active, it's gonna do it to it. All right. So let me just click out here, make sure nothing is selected, and I can come in here and, for example, if I don't like the way subtitle looks, I think it looks a little bit too close to the title, I can make changes. So if I double click subtitle, go to basic character format, and maybe I want to turn this down. All right. If I click preview, I can get a good, I'll get some feedback here. So let's do 20, I think will look better. All right. So that's kind of the nice thing about paragraph styles. So let me just make sure nothing is selected, and we'll move on. This is my first spread. One other thing I want to let you know about is down here, there's going to be a little red box letting me know that there's overset text. Oh, is there overset text? Yes. So if I click on this, you'll see the red box. We'll get into that later. Basically, there's more text than it's actually shown right now. If I give myself some room, you can actually see it. And this will produce errors. So we'll get into that later. All right, so let's click on my frame. And I want to pop in an image here. Previously, we did file place, and then we just click and drag or click and let go. But this time, because I have this frame selected, go ahead and do that now. When I do file place, it's going to put it right into the frame. So let's go here, file place. Go to my Photoshop file, and there we go. It will just automatically put it there. You can see it's not taking up the entire room here. So if you want to do this just kind of in one step, I'll go here to fill frame proportionally, and there we go. It did exactly as it said, and it filled the frame proportionally. Okay, so we have our front page here, our spread, and let's make a couple more spreads. Now, we went through all that work setting up what it looks like. I don't want to have to do all that again. I want to duplicate it. If you go in here and you start duplicating with just the default settings, duplicate spread, you can see what happens. It'll shuffle the pages, and it'll also put it at the end of the document. Okay, that's not typically what you want to do. I actually want to have the spread right after this spread, and I don't want it to split apart. I don't want it to shuffle. Okay, I'm going to show you one way of changing the default behavior. So if you click these three little lines here under pages, you can see these two are very important. Allow document pages to shuffle and allow selected spread to shuffle. So these are both on by default, and I typically don't like changing the defaults unless I absolutely have to. So I'm not going to show you how to change that. You can always click and it'll change it, but I'm going to show you another way. So another way of working is just by doing things by clicking and dragging, and I find it's a little, it makes a little more sense. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll select this page from the spread, and then I have to hold Shift, select the other page, so I have this entire spread selected. And we're going to duplicate the same way we did at the beginning by holding Alt, clicking, and dragging. And this is, I think, more intuitive. So let me hold on Alt, click, and drag, and you can see I can define exactly where I want it to go with this vertical line you'll see right now. Okay, so after you hold on Alt and you'll see the plus sign, you'll need to get in a little closer until you see that vertical line. Okay, you see now, and then I'll let go, and it duplicated it, it didn't shuffle, and it also put it exactly where I told it to go. If you have like 1,000 pages or 100 pages, this is a little bit harder to do, but I find it's very useful. So let me do that one more time for my third spread. Hold down Alt, click and drag. You'll see the plus sign. Get into until you can see that vertical line, then let go, and we're good. We have 3 spreads now. Okay, just like we did at the beginning, let me change which image is used here. So I'm going to right click, Object Layer Options, and let me turn off Blender and just show the Illustrator graphic. Okay, that looks fine. And now for the third one, right click, Object Layer Options, and I'll just show the Photoshop one. Okay, so there we go. There's our 3 spreads. And our final page is just going to be a black rectangle. We're not going to do anything else there. So let me do that now really quick. And let me lock this in place. So object and lock. Okay. Next thing I want to show you guys, let me show you the completed one. We have Rise DMC in the corner here. And I want to have that on all of my spreads. Okay. So let me show you how to do that. That's going to be done using parent pages. Okay. So let me click on pages. And you can see the A here. All of them are using the A parent. So let's learn how to make changes to the A parent. Okay, I'm going to double click. And this will take me into the A parent. And whatever this is kind of like master slides in PowerPoint, or maybe even like header and footer in Word. So whatever I put here, I expect to see it on all of these A pages. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit, hold Alt and zoom in. And maybe we'll start with body, okay, but it doesn't matter because we're going to change it a bunch anyway. Let's use the type tool, and I'm going to come in here, just draw a little box, doesn't need to be perfect, and we're going to type in Rice DMC. Okay, I'll type in Rice, hit enter, and then DMC. You'll notice we can't see anything. If you remember, this paragraph style is white text, and it's on a white background, and that's why we can't see anything. So let's make a change. Okay, I'm going to click on Properties. And then for Fill, under Appearance, I'm going to make this, we'll make it bright pink for now. Okay, so there we go. And let's do a couple more changes. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, maybe 24. And I don't know, maybe semi-bold. Okay. We're not going to, commit this to another style. It's just going to be used here, so I don't need to, organize this. You'll notice because I started out with body and I made those changes, it's going to show up as body plus, which means it's a modified. It's not the original body. So I'm going to click, make sure nothing's selected. Okay. And there we go. It should now, I should expect to see this at the bottom left of every one of my spreads. All right. And it's not going to work. And I'm going to show you why. All right. So let me double click here. Oh no, where did it go? I expect for it to say Rice DMC here. All right. So what's actually happening is it is there. It's just hidden underneath this black rectangle. So I'm going to unlock this by clicking the lockbox. And if I move this up a bit, you can see it is there, and it's just on the bottom, so it's behind everything. So let's make another change so we can actually see this. I'm going to head back over to A parent. Let me double click here. I'll click on it. And I need to put this on a separate layer, which is above everything else. So this is where we get to go into layers. Let me show you that now. Click on Window, Layers. Okay. Everything is on layer 1. So let me make a brand new layer. I'll hit the plus sign. This is layer 2. All right. This is still blue, and you can see the blue box is highlighted here, meaning the object which I have selected is on layer 1. I actually want it to be on layer 2. Now you could do Command or Control X to cut, and for example, and do Command V to paste, to paste it into layer 2. but there's a faster way of doing this. So all you have to do is click and hold the blue square and drag it up here. That's it. And now you'll see this has a red box around it, and it's selected, and it's showing red here, meaning it's on layer 2. Okay, so really nice and fast way of doing that. Now I'm actually going to click nothing here, make sure nothing is selected. I'm going to go back to layer 1 so that I don't add a bunch of things to layer 2 moving forward. All right, let's take a look at our work. So just double click any of these pages in your document, and there we go. All right, it says RiseDMC on all of our spreads, which is what we wanted. Okay. And you'll notice it's showing it on the back cover here. I don't want it on the back cover, so as I mentioned, this has A, the back cover has A. So let me remove that. I'm actually going to drag none. You can click right here, drag it, and just place it on top. So now this no longer has any parent pages associated with it. Okay? All right, so we're doing good. I'm going to do one other thing. I want to show you how to make a separate parent page that you can use. Let's try one where it's yellow text. All right, so what I'll do is I'm going to give myself some room here, and then I'm going to select these and go to these 3 lines. I'm going to go to duplicate spread a parent. So I'm just duplicating this parent. So I have a brand new one. I now have B parent. All right, let me zoom in here, and I'm just going to I'll make one change. I'll select all of this text, and I'll make sure now it is yellow. And make sure I'm using my selection tool so I don't make a bunch of text boxes. All right, I'll click back on pages, and this is now going to be my yellow RiseDMC. You can rename these to make them make more sense. I'll do that now. I'm going to go to parent options for B parent. It's very wordy. Basically, just you can change the name and all kinds of things right here. So parent options, click on that. Prefix is B, that's fine. For the name, I'm going to call this one yellow. So it makes more sense for me. And there you go. And also, I'm going to do that for this one. Parent options. I'm going to call this one, instead of parent, I'm going to call it pink. Maybe you could even call it pink name or pink DMC, whatever. So there we go. Those are named. And let me go back into my document by double clicking. All right, they are still using all of the pink RiseDMC, but as I mentioned, you can just click and drag. So for the yellow one, I'm going to click and drag and put it on top here. So now you'll see a tiny little B here showing you that this spread is now using B on the left page. So this is yellow. Okay, looking good so far. All right. And before we move on, I'm going to show how to export this. Before we export it and do all the other fun stuff, I'm just going to save the InDesign file. So let me do that now. I'll do a file save as. Okay, and I'm just going to put it in documents. I'm going to call this InDesign TUT for tutorial. Okay, that's saved. And the first option we're going to do is a print PDF. Okay. So I'm going to export this. I'll go to File, Export. Adobe PDF print. It's using the print preset, which is good. That's fine. And let me rename this to print. Okay. And you can export it as individual pages, or you can even export it as spreads. Depending on the printer you're using, they might ask for different things. But let's just do it with spreads today so we can see what that looks like. And then this is where the preset comes in. Anything above 450, it's going to bring it down to 300 pixels per inch, which is totally fine for printing purposes. All right, marks and bleeds, we'll get into that in a second. Let's just leave this as is for now, and we'll come back and take a look at that later. So I'm going to do export, and it's going to complain about overset text. As I mentioned, that's these red boxes where it's not being fit all the way in, we're missing some of the text. This is just an example, so in real life you would want to delete that text, the extra text, or spill it out onto another text box, but that's fine. We'll ignore that for now. Click OK. You'll see a little progress thing here. It's done, and let's take a look at it. Okay, so here it is, InDesign print. I'm going to double click on that. All right, here's the PDF we created. It's using the print. It's actually using the CMYK color mode. So this black is just using K. It's not using CMY. So it's a little bit faded, and it's not as thick of a black as, for example, over here. So there we go. We chose spread, so we're getting the full spreads here. And in a second, I'll show you how to kind of blend these together. This image over here is RGB. It was created in Blender, so it's an RGB image. It doesn't have CMYK. This RGB is 000, which is black. And you can see when it's in CMYK, that 00 black is actually very dark. So I'll show you in a second how to get a CMYK that's very, very dark if you need something like that. Okay, so there's our print one. You can see the quality is quite nice. It looks nice and crisp, right? And let's move on. I'm going to show you how to work with bleeds, which is another important. It's also very important if you're developing this to be printed out at a commercial printer. All right, so let's play with bleeds now. I'm going to go here to edit. All right, actually I'm going to go to file, document setup. And this is something that we saw at the beginning of the workshop, and you can change it after the fact. And it's right here, bleed and slug. So for bleed, I'm going to do 1/8 of an inch, which is 0.125. When I do that on one of them, it'll populate to the others because of this feature, which is fine. That's what I want. And slug, we don't really have to worry about that. It just shows you kind of where the images go. We'll just go over bleed for now. So I'm going to click OK. And you can see we have a new boundary here with the red. That's showing us where the bleed is. Okay. If you're designing with a bleed, you need to design all the way to the bleed. Okay. So let me show you what that means. You need to bring your artwork all the way to that red boundary for bleed to really matter at all. Otherwise, it's just not doing anything. Okay. So I'm going to extend these all the way out. I'm only going to do this on the first page so you can see the difference. Okay, so let me make this bigger. And then let me click on this. And I'm going to click that fill frame proportionally once again so that the artwork goes all the way to that red line. All right, and then the other changes we spoke of with the colors, let me show you how to take a closer look at that. So I'm going to click on Window, Color, and Swatches. Okay, I'm going to rip this out so we can take a look at it. And you can see this black box is using black. It's actually CMYK black. This document isn't, whenever we do our print preset, it's going to make something in CMYK intended for printing. And it actually won't allow me to change this one. This is reserved. So let me make a duplicate. I'm going to click and drag this black onto this new. This is one way of duplicating. You can always do it another way. Here's a copy here. All right. So let me double click this copy and see what we're working with. This is CMYK, as I mentioned, 0 cyan, 0 magenta, 0 yellow, and it's using 100% black. All right. But I want a different version. Let's do a deep black. Depending on your paper you're printing on, this could kind of like seep into the white type here. Just be careful with this because you're going to be using all the inks. So if I go 100% on all of these, this might even be a little bit more expensive because you're using all the inks here. Cyan, magenta, yellow, black. I'm calling this deep black, and I'll click OK. You'll notice it's still a CMYK, and we're just using all of the inks. Okay, and I'm going to make sure that this is active. This rectangular box is now using this deep black rather than the black. Okay, and then let me show you how to get rid of, you can get rid of this overset text if you want by just, you can come in here and just delete all that, and it's not going to be overset anymore. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it, if this is the final text and you need to see all that text, you can also click this red box and it'll bring it into your your cursor here, which will allow you to either drop it into an existing text box, or you can come in here, click and drag to make a new text box, and it'll spill out the rest of the type over there. And there we go. I don't see any more red boxes, meaning it's no longer overset. The nice thing about doing it this way, these are connected. So if I change something here, these text boxes are connected. All right, so we've finalized just this spread, so we can see the difference. And let's try exporting that print PDF once again. So I'm going to go to File, Export, Print PDF, and I'm going to give this the same name to override it. Replace it. All right, we're still going to export the spreads. Okay, but we've added bleed. And I also want to export with all of these printer marks. Depending on the commercial printer you use, they might want you to actually give them a PDF with all of these already on. So I'm going to turn them on now. And then I'm going to make sure I go here to use document bleed settings. We spent all that time setting up our bleed in our document and designing to the bleed. This is really important. We need to turn it on, otherwise it's not going to be reflected in the final PDF. All right, so that's it. We just changed to turn all this stuff on, and let me export this. Okay, there's our progress. It's done, and let's take a look at that now. All right, I'll double click, and you can see all of the printer marks. This is registration, so they'll use that to line up the paper. These are the colors. So if they're printing 10,000 of these out, they'll grab number 1 and they'll grab number 5,000 and make sure that these colors look the same as number 5,000, so that if they're running low on ink or there's not enough ink on the roller, they'll stop. They'll pause the job and clean up the ink or put more ink on the rollers or whatever they need to do to keep the color so all 10,000 copies look good. Okay. And this is the document here, and then this second little mark is the bleed. So let me show you. I'm going to zoom into here. All right. This is where the document ends. And then this is the bleed. So you can see all this extra black here is going to get cut off. They're going to crop it here. They're going to cut off here. And they're going to throw that black in the garbage. That's the only way they're able to have ink that goes all the way to the edge of the paper. It's impossible for the print head to, to print all the way to the edge without making a mess. That's not how it works. They have to print on a larger sheet of paper. This is larger than an 8.5 by 11. So they print larger with the ink, and then they cut off that extra ink. Okay, that's what bleed is. So this is looking good. We designed it correctly. Let's take a look at our owl and make sure we designed all the way to the bleed. Yes, we did. That looks good. And the other thing to look at is the black here. So here's our deep black. You can see it looks the same as our RGB black. And in fact, because this is a Adobe PDF for print, it's actually should be converting that RGB to CMYK anyway. So these look the same. Okay. If I look down here, I remember I didn't change this one. This is just using that K100 CMY 0. All right, so you can see the difference here. All right, so we're done with that one. Okay. That looks good. Let's go back to our document, and that is making a print PDF intended for printing. Okay, specifically commercial printing. All right, so let's do another version. So if you have a really huge file and you just want a proof, or you want to send, not even a proof really, you just need to send a really small file to your boss to have them look it over, make corrections, and get back to you. You can make a smaller web version PDF, and let me show you that now. So I'll go to File, Export, and this time I'll change the preset to interactive. So previously we had it on print. Let's now go to interactive. And I'm going to call this one, call it web or portable or interactive. And in fact, you can have interactive hyperlinks and things like that, but we're just going to do this for now. All right. So let me hit save. And the settings are there's fewer settings. It's a little bit different. Well, we can still export its spreads. And you'll see now compression. So 72 pixels per inch is going to look good for the screen. So if you're viewing this on a computer screen, 72 pixels per inch is fine. It's going to be a smaller file size. And then JPEG quality, you might want to go up to high, maximum, so you don't have that weird JPEG compression that looks kind of gross. All right. But I'm just going to leave this as is so we can see the resulting file. So I'll hit export. And it's going to tell you here, this document is using CMYK blend space. Colors are converted to RGB in interactive PDF files. So this is something that's going to be viewed on a computer screen, and it's going to switch it to RGB. All right. So just be aware of that. You know, if this is the job is, if you're prioritizing print, just be aware that this interactive smaller file size PDF is not going to show you the true colors. It's going to convert everything to RGB. All right, that's fine. I'll click OK. And it'll actually open it up right off the bat. You'll notice with this interactive PDF, it's a lot more pixelated because we're at 72 pixels per inch, and we also have some compression. All right, and you'll see this black will blend in here because now this was already in RGB and it's switched this CMYK to RGB. So even on this one, it's going to look the same because it's switching this from the CMYK color black, which was actually just K100. It's now switched that to RGB 000 black, and this is also RGB 000. So you can see it looks the same. Just be aware of that. it's now everything's in RGB. Okay, and this is a much smaller file size. All right, let's take a look. Well, it's not a very big document, so you're not going to see too much of the file difference. But here's the print version, 5.6 megabytes, and then here's the web version, pretty much half a megabyte. So yeah, this is something you can email to yourself. You know, it's intended for different use. It's for web view. Just be aware of all these things. All right. That's pretty much it for now. The last thing I want to show you, which is very important to InDesign, we went over this earlier with links, is the fact that none of these file, well, this file does not exist within my InDesign file. So let me show you what I mean. Here's my InDesign file, and it's 3.8 megabytes. My Photoshop file, which I'm using, is actually 35 megabytes. Or 40 megabytes. So just by doing the math here, there's no way that Photoshop file is contained within the InDesign file. All right, what I'm getting at is if you need to share this project with someone, you need to package it to include all of the media, to package, you know, all of the vector art, the photos, the graphics, everything which is linked. All right. So you'll need to save the InDesign file, which we've done already, and then you'll go here to File, and then Package. Okay? It'll tell you all the errors and everything. Just click on Package. It'll even bring in the fonts, as you can see, all the links and images. Good, yes. All right. Yeah, we'll save it. That's fine. And this is actually going to create a folder. So it'll give the name of the folder. It's going to put it in Documents, which is fine. All right. Include PDF. It's going to make the print PDF on the fly here, just to have it. You can turn that off if you want, but you can just leave this pretty much as is. So let me hit Package. It's going to tell you about copyright, which you should already know about. All right. Don't use copyright things without permission. You can just read that. So anyway, yes, okay. All right, there we go. It's been packaged, and let's take a look what we're cooking with here. InDesign tutorial folder. So this is, it made a brand new folder, and it put everything in here. It put all of the Adobe fonts, the myriad variable concepts in there, which is needed if the printer needs to open up this file. They need all of these things. Okay, here's the InDesign file. Here's the PDF it created on the fly. And also, and most importantly, is links. And it copied that Photoshop file in here. So everything your project needs is contained within this folder. So if you need to send this to a coworker or colleague or whatever, you can package this up. All right, on Mac, you can just right click and go to compress. On Windows, it's slightly different, but there we go. So there we have it. We now have InDesign tutorial.zip. Okay, so on Windows or Mac, you can double click this. Windows, right click, unzip, and everything is contained in this zipped folder, this zipped file. Okay, and that's pretty much it. That's all you need to know if you're sharing this, if you're working in a group, or if you're gonna, go use it on a home computer, edit at home, whatever. You need to package everything up. Okay, that's it for the workshop.